talking a little bit early because I think we're live now. Welcome, Bill. It's episode 73 of the Get Shit Done show.
Well, good to see your face, Tellman. You know, I was telling you because we had a little pre-conversation about this that you were famous to me long before you knew who I was, because I was new in the internet commerce, e-commerce, marketing space. And I would listen to audios from various things that you did when I was learning this new thing as not a digital native, as a 50-something-year-old person. I was traveling around the world, teaching workshops 3 or 4 times a month. And I wanted to get off the road, and I still loved what I did, but I just didn't want to travel so much. And I thought, well, you know, e-commerce, internet marketing is the way to go. Put my stuff up on the internet. And you were one of my influences there. So it's interesting to finally speak to you in person and see your smiling face.
Yeah, you said that you studied a lot with Jeff Walker.
Yeah, Jeff Walker. I went to a couple of big internet marketing conferences to find out, you know, what it was all about, try and learn it. And there wasn't a good fit for the first couple that I went to. And then I went to a friend of mine had a free ticket for a Jeff Walker PLF Live, Product Launch Formula is his big thing. And I was in the audience. I was like, this is my guy. I don't know.
Kind of have a similar vibe to Jeff. I think you're a little bit more eccentric, maybe a little more edgy, but like you're kind of similarly resonant, I feel.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing because I was in one of his mastermind groups for a couple of years, and then he asked me to move up to the more elite mastermind, which was for people who had businesses of, I don't know, 5 million or more, or something like that. And I got like, I don't have that kind of business. He goes, no, Bill, I want you in there. You're such a team player. You really support and lift up other people. And he said, plus one of your goals is like my goals. It's not to make so much more money. It's to have a life.
Right.
And everybody else in this group wants to make a boatload. They want 10 times their income every year. I wanted 2 times my leisure time and my self-care and my time with friends and family. And you're totally into that, which was my goal. I mean, I loved my work. And like anybody who loves their work and maybe gets good at it, you can do it a little too much. So it's challenging for us, those of us who can do it really well and get a lot out of it, to not do it all the time, because you can make more money, you get more status, you know, you get more, you know,
it's addictive. Yeah.
And dopamine flowing through your brain. Oh, I did this thing and it was really cool and it succeeded and I made this happen. Yeah, it's a challenge to find that, you know, I've never lived with balance. I don't care about balance.
Right.
I care about, you know, having the life that I want, you know, the freedom and the joy and the connections with people, and to live a healthy, relatively healthy life, you know, as much as I can. And so, you know, that for me was one of the things that really appealed to me about Jeff. He wasn't all about more money. He was about
right. It's always been about lifestyle. It's always been his primary. Yep.
Yeah, it's an important thing, because why are you doing this? I mean, you're doing it, obviously, there's a bunch of reasons for people, but you're doing it to live the kind of life that you want to live and have the kind of relationships and impact that you want to have. So yeah, I think, you know, he was a really good fit for me. And then one time I was in one of his things and someone was struggling with one part of Product Launch Formula. And I had been a therapist, a couples therapist, and I knew how to do this one little thing. So I helped him coach the person to do that thing. It was called landing the plane. It's just getting specific about results. And every year after that, he invited me to PLF Live to come up on stage for 15 minutes and coach people on how to land the plane. And we had such a good time doing that for years. I did it a couple of times virtually, and then I sort of faded away because I went into songwriting land, which you and I will talk about. Yeah,
that's awesome. So that's very cool. I've spent a fair amount of time with Jeff, but not in a long time. We were for a while in strategic coach together with Dan Sullivan up in Toronto. Yep. And I actually love to start all the Get Shit Done episodes with positive focus, which I learned about in strategic coach. So Bill, what are you happiest or most excited about in your life right now?
I love writing songs. I don't like it. I love writing songs, and it brings me such joy. We'll talk about this, but I pretty much write a song a day. Sometimes I write 3 songs, then I'll take a day off. But it's a song a day on average, and it brings me such joy. And it wasn't that way for a little while, but that's what it is right now.
Yeah, so I really want to get into the song a day thing. I want to talk about how you've managed to write 43 books. It sounds like you've been very prolific over your life and career, and even as a therapist, you said you work primarily with couples.
Well, I did couples. I did hypnotherapy. I studied with Milton Erickson, so I did hypnotherapy for years, and I did individual therapy. But yeah, I was trained as a marriage and family therapist. While I was training for that, I met Milton Erickson when I was a psychology student, and while I was training to be a marriage and family therapist, and he was one of the early pioneers of marriage and family therapy. So I did that. But I want to go back a little farther. I was a shy kid, super anxious, big family, 8 kids, and I was the runt of the litter, the shy one, my mother's favorite, kind of the sensitive one. And I went to university, and my family encouraged you to go far away, just to break the ignorant strings and be independent. Yeah. And they pushed me out of the nest. I didn't have any wings. I just flopped. I just hit the ground. I had a tough time. I was really lonely. I got depressed. I almost killed myself.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up around Chicago, suburb of Chicago, and then I went to school in Arizona. I went to university in Arizona, and so a long way away. And I didn't have many people there, and I was again very shy. So I had a couple of friends, but they were about as weird and alien as I was. I was a hippie at the time. It's sort of post-hippie. We call ourselves freak, long hair, and all that. And I was questioning everything I'd ever been taught growing up. And experimenting with things, majored in philosophy. So I was questioning even reality kind of thing.
Right.
And I just got lost. I came unmoored. And then when I came through that and I didn't kill myself, a friend talked me out of it. I thought, I got to figure out this thing, this world, this life. I got to figure out how to do it. And one of the things that, gave me meaning was reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He said, meaning is central to mental health. And I thought, you got to have a reason to get up every day. You got to have a reason to do the things you do in the world. Obviously getting money and having security is great, but there's got to be something bigger and something beyond that. And I found my passion first in psychology, then in a sub branch of that, which was psychotherapy. Psychology was about analyzing what was wrong with us and doing a bunch of experiments. Psychotherapy was about helping people change, like hypnotherapy. You do that. I love that process, getting people when they were suffering and miserable and moving them to not suffering and not miserable, or even thriving and happy and joyful. That is a great privilege to be able to sit with people, couples that are on the brink of breaking up when they don't need to. Some people obviously will need to and do, but most people, they just got in some bad patterns and bad habits and miscommunications and misunderstandings. And I love getting couples that were going over the cliff, grabbing them by the back of their shirts, pulling them back up, and within a week or a month or 6 months, they were in love again and really connected and in a better relationship. That turned me on a great deal, to be able to make a contribution to people's lives, and weirdly enough, to make a living at it. It wasn't a super lucrative living, but it was enough to pay the bills in those days. And for me as a former hippie who didn't care about money and wasn't thinking about that, it was like, oh, I can help people do this job with heart and meaning and purpose. And that was a really great thing. I met Milton Erickson in that journey, and it was like being hit by a billiard ball. He really changed my life. I didn't have any money to pay him. I became his gardener. It's a long story of how that happened when I was in graduate school. And he really warped the rest of my life, because you talk about psychotically optimistic. He believed everybody could change, and you just had to find that unique way of helping them change. And that was a challenge for me. But I got exposed to hypnosis, which had frightened me before. I was like, oh, hypnosis, no.
Right.
And I became a convert, and I just love working with the deeper and non-conscious elements of people to help them change. Because, some people are really good at, working with themselves, trying to change their mind. But hypnosis is a really cool tool to get to that stuff you can't deliberately get to consciously and deliberately. I love it. So I've done that for, decades, and still haven't ever gotten to the bottom of hypnosis. There's more to learn all the time about people and about hypnosis. So I did that for a while, but at a certain point early on, really in my career, while I was finishing graduate school and starting my psychotherapy career, frankly, I got pissed off. The whole field was about what was wrong with people. It was about their diagnoses, their childhood traumas, their bad genetics or bad brain chemistries or neurological problems. And Erickson had an influence on me. He was always looking for resources and abilities and solutions. Even people's symptoms, he thought, could be resources. Their problems could be resources.
Right.
So I started, even in graduate school, shy as I was, arguing with my professors. It's like, what about like the helpful side of people's lives? They're not all sick and crazy and pathological. And they were like, oh, they slapped me down, you young whippersnapper. You don't know anything. Wait till you're, in the field. Nobody wants to change. Everybody's all messed up. And I was like, and then I got into a professional job, and it was the same thing. I would just drive me crazy. Finally, just out of frustration, shy as I was, I started going out and teaching. I had studied with Bandler and Grinder before they created neurolinguistic programming, NLP. And I started teaching people about metaphors and what they called patterns of communication change. I did my master's research on that. And as shy as I was, I started to go out and teach. And, I was terrified to teach. But when I got up there and when I got the flow going, the fear went away, and people came up to me after my first workshop and said, that was great. And I was like, I thought it sucked. I thought it was bad. And I wasn't that great, but I wasn't that bad either. I knew my stuff. Let's just say that. And I was pretty good at communicating it. So that got me hooked on being a workshop presenter. And I started to do that. And then, halftime clinical practice, halftime workshop presenter. And then the workshop presenting exploded. I started to go all over the world. I got a reputation for it. 3 or 4 times a month, I was in China or Japan or Australia or wherever, and all over the States. That's where I live most of the time. And people said, where's your book? And I go, oh, I don't know. I'm too hyper to write a book. I don't know how to write a book. I wouldn't have the first clue how to write a book.
How old were you at this point?
I was in my 20s, 26, 27, 28. When I wrote my first book, I was 30, 31, I think. And it came out when I was 31. And I asked a friend who'd edited a book, a psychologist friend. And I have a master's degree. I don't have a PhD or an MD. And I said, how do you get a book published? You've gotten a book published. He said, he hadn't written, he just edited it. And he said, oh, you'll never get a book published, Bill. You haven't got a PhD or an MD. And I was like, I didn't go for you for advice about why I'm going to fail. I went to you for advice about how to do this thing that I don't know how to do. So again, pissed me off. In the early part of my career, I was so procrastinating, so avoidant, and so anxious. The only thing that could move me off a dime to get stuff, really hard stuff done, was to get profoundly and deeply pissed off. So I was like, well, screw him. I'm going to figure out how to do a book. And I did my first book, 3 years, blood on the keyboard, hated every minute of it, loved when it was done. I wrote my second book in 9 months. It was about Erickson's work. It was called Taproots. And that came out first because of some vagaries of the publishing industry. But all of a sudden, my publishers are like, what's your next book? And I'm like, next book? And I had 5 books that were in my mind at that point. So I started writing a book a year. It basically was a book a year. And then about 17 books into it, I wrote a book in 2 weeks. I had just gotten to that place where I knew how to get out of my own way and how to get shit done, and specifically how to get a book written and published. And it was was nice knowing that I had a place for it, that I knew the publishers or the agents that would get my books to the publishers. That is rewarding in itself. So after, a bunch of books, I know, well, they want another book of mine because the last one sold pretty well and they want another one. So that's reinforcing. But again, I was a professional procrastinator. I think I majored in that in college. And then I was avoidant for the most part and a little lazy, I would say. And the thing that I had to rely on at first was two things. One is that passion. I had such a passion to communicate and I was pissed off. That energy took me through the hard parts of it. The second thing is, at least in terms of publishing books, I would sign a contract. They would pay me in advance. I would sign a contract and say the book is due October 1st.
Right.
And like September 1st, I'd be like, no, it's due in a month. And, I was that kind of guy.
Last minute. Yeah.
In college, did the term paper the last night kind of thing. Didn't open the book until right before the exam.
No, I've always had the same tendency. My son is the same way, full force. Yeah.
And, I gradually got over that. And partly how I did it was something I learned as a psychotherapist. And I love telling this to people, especially a room full of psychotherapists. They say, well, how do you write books? And I go, well, there are two parts to that. First, you have to have the energy to write. I talked about that. You have to have that passion. In that part, you really need to get in touch with who you are, what you feel, and what's really important to you, what you want. As soon as you decide it's time to do something to get shit done, whatever, make an online course, exercise, whatever it may be.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Totally ignore your feelings. Do not get in touch with your feelings. Or if you get in touch with them, do not let them run the show. It's like if your body goes, your mind goes, oh, it's early, it's too early to get up.
Right, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to get up because
the alarm went off, out of bed. Yep.
Your feelings in your mind are not your friends. They're not your amigos at that point. They are all the reasons why you shouldn't, why you can't, why you don't feel like it. Who cares what you feel like? I mean, there was this guy, Bryce Courtney, he wrote a best-selling book called The Power of One. It was made into a movie. And he started writing books in his later life, 40s. Right. Someone said, well, how are you so prolific? You've written all these books after the age of 40. He said, I have a secret. Bum glue. He's from Australia. Bum glue. I glue my butt in the chair and I do it. And really that was ultimately the secret to writing books and not writing them at the last minute is, it's time to sit down and write, whether you feel like it or not. If you get one paragraph done, you get one paragraph done. If you get 5 pages done, you get 5 pages done. The good news about me and maybe you and your son is the kind of brain I have. I work quickly when I work.
Right. When you sit down and you know what you're doing and you're on point. So let me ask you a few questions about this because this is really good stuff. I mean, writing a book, I expect is kind of like writing a song, except longer, right?
It's definitely longer.
But still writing on a consistent basis, right? It's a similar activity. So I want to come back to meaning for a second.
Yes.
And I agree with you about meaning. I agree with you about purpose. One thing that I've been challenged by is that I've had many students over 2 decades that I've been doing this online marketing thing, about over 250,000 paying customers and clients, either in the internet marketing, list building side, or on the money mindset hypnosis side for the most part. And I found that the people that seem to achieve some level of success do have that sense of purpose and that sense of meaning. And the people that seem to stay perpetually stuck at start, perpetually starting at scratch, perpetually starting over, perpetually chasing opportunities, but never following through, tend to not be in touch with why they're doing it outside of just keeping up with the Joneses and repeating a bunch of cultural phrases that they've heard. I want to make $10,000 a month. I want to have freedom to go where I want, when I want. I want to not have to worry about money anymore. They're kind of culturally conditioned to believe that when you have money, you don't have to worry about it. which is interesting. But what I found is that people that take off like a rocket and kick ass are tuned into that meaning, and they squeeze it in their free time. They squeeze it in. They do the thinking while they're driving. They're listening to an audiobook while they're on a flight. They're making phone calls in between, on lunch break if they're in a job, to move their business forward. And so in your experience as an author, as someone who's been very prolific over many years, it sounds like, and extensively as a therapist, how do people find it? How do people find meaning when they don't know what the heck they're doing or why at a deep level?
Well, let me break it down to something easier than meaning, because meaning is a little abstract and big. What if I don't have it? What if I don't know what that is? I think there are 4 signals that tell you what you're supposed to be doing now and where you're going.
Okay.
And I'm good with these lists. I have that kind of list mind. And
Great.
So, it's blissed, blessed, pissed, or dissed. Blissed, blessed, pissed, or dissed. Blissed is easy. What do you love? What would you do if they didn't pay you, kind of stuff? Steven Spielberg, bad student, but he bugged his parents and they got him a Super 8 camera when he was a teenager. He started making full-fledged movies when he was a teenager. That's what his movie Super 8 was about, and became a filmmaker. He knew what his bliss was, but a lot of people don't know that. But that's, if you have something you love horses, or you love, video games, or whatever it is, if you find that passion, that bliss, that you just can't stop doing this thing,
right?
That's cool. But that's an easy one for those of us who actually have that one.
Right.
A lot of people, my clients in psychotherapy, most of them didn't have a clue.
That's how I started my first business. It was a salsa company, like chips and salsa, and I've always loved hot peppers. My first 2 jobs in high school were in kitchens, and I mean, since I was introduced to hot peppers, I loved like competing with people in hot sauce eating competitions, from very early, as soon as I found it. And so, and to this day, I make hot sauce and salsa. It's just not a business anymore. So that, great example of passion, right?
And that's a great idea. So you had energy for that. You sought it out, even when people didn't pay you for it.
Which they very rarely did with that business. Not profit anyway.
When you couldn't see it as a career path, you figured out something that you could do with it. And even if you do it as a hobby, that's a different. Second one is blessed.
Yeah.
Blessed is, some people are just blessed with a natural talent, but more by blessed, I mean somebody in your life sees something in you that you don't necessarily see or believe in or validate in yourself. They go, wow, Tellman, you have the gift of gab.
Right.
You can go into sales, or you really know how to take a complex subject and make it simple and clear for people. Right. You should, whatever it may be. You have a parent, a friend, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, a teacher, a mentor, who somehow,
you're an astonishing football player, whatever.
Absolutely. So somebody takes you under their wings and says, you can do this. I believe in you. Yep. And I think you're really amazing at it. I think you could be even more amazing. So somebody blesses you. Yep. They mentor you. They bless you. Sometimes it's a mentor from afar. I had, when I was trying to write my first book, and this stupid psychologist told me I could never go unpublished without a PhD or an MD. I had a mentor from afar, 2 of them, who had master's degrees, had published best-selling psychotherapy books. And I thought, well, he's wrong. I'm going to use those people as my role model, even though I didn't meet them for years.
Yeah.
And, they were my mentors from afar, because I thought, it's like you hear these stories about the little black girl who sees, Kamala Harris running for president, goes, I guess it's possible for me. Sometimes you can have mentors or role models from afar who tell you something is possible and encourage you in that direction.
And you believe it. Yeah, right.
That's blissed and blessed. Now, those are the positive sides. Yeah. The negative side, which most of my psychotherapy clients were sitting on, the negative side of the line was,
of course,
pissed and dissed. That is, pissed. They are righteously indignant about the state of something in the world. Right. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Michael Moore, the guy who made all those movies, about things being wrong and what he was pissed off about, GM or whatever, our healthcare system. That whether you agree with them or not, their passion was they were pissed off about something that was wrong with the world that they wanted to make it right. And with these negative ones, these two negative ones, so-called negative ones, you have to transform them. You can't just show up with the AK-47
and just complain. Yeah, right.
Shoot the head of, United Healthcare. I get the anger, but that expression of it doesn't contribute.
Yeah, you've got to bring some hope to the game.
You got to figure out a way to make a positive difference in that area if you're pissed off about it.
That's right.
Same thing if you're dissed. And dissed, what I mean is disrespected, like the kids say, you dissed me, dissed. Somebody, or wounded, you can even say, but it doesn't rhyme with bliss, bless,
right.
Bliss, and diss. So, where were you or somebody that you really cared about hurt or wounded or disrespected somewhere along the line in your life that you've got energy to make sure that doesn't happen to anybody else?
Yeah, so it's help people heal.
Yeah, it's not just by going to therapy, but actually by doing something that makes the world a better place, that stops those things from happening to people like you or the people you love. I remember Patrick Stewart, the guy who played Star Trek Captain Jean-Luc Picard, right? His mother got the hell beat out of her by his father and maybe some other men, I can't remember. And when he became famous and had money, he started charity and funded a bunch of women's shelters.
Yeah,
that was his wound. That was his diss.
Yeah.
I knew an author who was married to an aspiring author, and she was an aspiring author. She tried to get into the writing program at a university, which her husband was in, and the professor told her, this was in the 60s, so it was some years ago, girls don't become writers, they become nurses and teachers and wives. And she was so pissed off by that and so disrespected by that, she became a best-selling author, So those are the four energies. I think that's your signal for the direction you should go. And while you're using that signal to go in those directions, you'll find the meaning is bigger, like the expression of it in the world. What gives you, a reason to jump out of bed every morning instead of crawl out of bed or not get out of bed?
Right.
That's an easier way to break it down. So bliss, bless, piss, and diss.
Okay. So you can use these four ideas and where they intersect. I notice they all directly intersect with your life with one's life in a very personal way, right? Like they're all how these energies hit you in your personal experience, right? In your unique life and your unique story and journey, right? So practically speaking, once you figure out why you're doing what you're doing, like what's fueling you, right? What's fueling you to get up a little bit earlier? What's fueling you to stay up a little bit later at night? What's fueling you to work on this in on your breaks and during your commutes? And you're thinking about it in your free time. You have to stop yourself from thinking about it, sometimes because you're so excited.
That's right. Yeah. Well,
now, how do you harness that energy into product? How do you personally harness that energy into productivity? Meaning, how do you get shit done from I'm writing books, from I'm perhaps working with therapy clients, I'm writing songs. How do you structure your day, your life? How do you set yourself up for success?
You got to find your way of doing it. And, for writing books, I already told you one of the things. I made an external promise. If I told myself, I'm going to write a book this year, maybe not. I don't know, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I don't always keep my word to myself. I usually, not 100% of the time, but in the 90s, keep my word with other people. You and I talked about, hey, I'll see you tomorrow for this thing. You were counting on me, and no matter what I felt like when I got up, I felt fine. But what I felt like I was going to show up for.
Right. No, I'm coming down with a flu right now.
Yeah.
My forearms were achy, my elbows. I was like, oh, I woke up a little early with that pre-cold energy. I was oh
And
man.
you could have said, I can't do this today, or I don't want to do it. And if it was bad
Totally.
enough,
I
you
have
could
a splitting headache right now. I don't really feel like it. It's true.
kind of thing. And so something bigger than that, you go, well, I made a promise to someone. They're counting on me. I made a promise to myself that I would do this every day, which is bigger promise. That's bigger than whatever you're feeling or whatever you're going through at the
Right.
time. Again, if it's an emergency and it's terrible, you can't do it. You can't
Whatever.
do it.
Yeah, if you're in the
So
hospital, blah blah. Yeah.
that'd be the first thing, is that, you know, you don't let the feelings of the moment. You have that one of those four energies carries you. Like you said, when I wrote my books, I had 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I had to get up, take them to school. You know, sometimes they get up in the middle of the night, they barf on the bed. I'd have to change the sheet, you
Absolutely.
know,
Yep.
them, still get up at the same time every morning. I stayed up later, you know, be watching the news with my wife and fading. And then I think, I've got to write tonight.
Right.
You know, that's my night, or, you know, I have to write.
So, I mean, when you're writing all these books and doing a song every day, do you schedule in writing time? Is it on your calendar, or do you just freestyle it and find a way of squeezing it in?
It's different for both. I almost never did that with writing. I didn't write every day. I have friends that are writers who say you have to write every day. It's a muscle.
Right.
For me, it wasn't. Now the barriers are gone. I don't have any of that gunk in the way of, you know, I had some friends who were in a musical group when I was in college, and they said, we are all flutes through which a breath of God should pass. And I used to have gunk in my flute that would stop me from writing my books or, you know, doing whatever I needed to do. And it was that resistance and, you know, I don't feel like it. And, you know, I'm lazy and I have other things that are more priorities. I just got rid of that gunk. So I don't need that anymore. Songwriting is a slightly different thing. You know, when I first got serious about songwriting, so you and I talked again offline on this. I went through Jeff Walker's thing. I learned how to do online courses, and I made enough money, so I paid off all my debts, saved up enough money that I never had to work again. I don't mind.
What was your primary thing that you sold with that? Like, what was your winning course?
Online courses, how to write a book and get it published, how to be a public speaker, Ericksonian hypnosis. I did 5 courses, but first I did 2 courses. And the first time I did it, I did a pilot. Jeff coached me, and I did a pilot launch, and I made 9,000 to part of my list. I'd been building up an email list for a while.
As an author.
As a speaker, as an author, I would give away my slides as an incentive for people to give me their email. And so I had 2,000 emails.
Yeah.
Then I went and got 6,000. I put my attention on. Then I went and got 11,000. I had 11,000 when I first launched my people on my email list. When I first launched my first course, and Jeff said, just try it to a portion of your course because you're going to get some of it wrong and you got to do some iterations. So I made $9,000. I was like, that's pretty good. I was charging $5,000 or $6,000 per day to speak. So that got me off 1 trip a month to speak. So I was like, okay, that lets me stay home more. I like that. I still get to do my work. The next time I did it to my whole list, but with no affiliates. And I made $68,000. Okay, that got me off a bunch of times that I would have scheduled to do a traveling speaking engagement. That was great motivation for me. And then I did it with affiliates, and I made $234,000. I brought in $244,000. I didn't make
what course. What course was that?
That was how to write a book in record time and get it published. So that one, you know, I've been on Oprah. You know, I had best-selling books. I'd written at that point probably 30 books. And so I had some credibility in that area. And so that was a really, you know, a lot of people want to write books. And I'm really good with that system stuff. I knew the system of how to do it. And I'll tell you part of my system if you want to know that.
I do. But this brings up an interesting thought for me, which is, of course, the rise of AI has changed the book writing industry dramatically. And I'm curious about your opinion on this idea. My feeling, I believe this is true, is that AI sniffers will become more and more sophisticated on all the social media platforms, Amazon, etc. I think that as AI content, written content in particular, runs rampant, which it already is, but it's growing. I think that there's a very good chance that many of the major social media platforms and or search engines or whatever replaces search engines will start filtering that stuff out to a certain degree. Like some will be human only content, some will be AI, a hybrid. But
for songwriting. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's, what's that?
It's true for songwriting. The U.S. Copyright Office made a pronouncement that it has to be substantially human generated to be a copyrightable song. I don't know about that.
It's a similar issue, right? So I guess the question is, would there be perhaps a more niched down but increased interest in writing your own book without AI, specifically for the AI adverse, which I bet there are a lot of writers who are not into AI, like a lot of people who really take their writing seriously that are not pleased. I feel like how to write a real book yourself in 12 weeks or whatever it is, not only would sell, but I feel like there's going to be less competition, and you could probably, I don't know what you sold it for, but I feel like you might be able to increase your price on it. I don't know if you even want to, but it seems like it might be a more valuable skill now in a certain way.
No, I think you're right. And that's a way of thinking, that I had to learn to think, because I was a therapist and a writer and a creative person, to think about how to angle something so it really appealed to people and appealed to a specific, people who had a passion for them. They hated AI with a passion. That's a cool niche to go after, I think. I think that's great.
I just looked it up. There's a whole, I had a thought about fears and phobias.
Yeah.
And fear of AI, fear of the oncoming AI apocalypse, basically fear of Terminator coming to fruition. Sure. And I bet it's messing people up bad right now. I haven't had people come to me about it yet, but I bet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hear it all the time among my friends. But yeah, I mean, taking your job, AI taking your job, that's a little lower level than the Terminator.
It's real fear. Yeah. I mean, it's taken tons of copywriters' jobs already.
I
high-paid copywriters. Yeah.
Well, I'll just give you the cliff notes for what I learned about how I write write books best and how I write songs best. Cool. So first thing is, I do not write a book without one of those energies. I have to have a great deal of energy, because a book, like you say, different from a song. Song is 3 minutes. It may take you hours to write it, or months or years, but it's 3 minutes. A book, it's hundreds of pages. You have to go through a bunch of iterations of editing. It's a hassle. It's a real hassle. So you have to have a passion to carry through that. So I don't start a book without that passion. That's my first step. Second step is I have to have a title that really excites me and a subtitle. I write mostly nonfiction. I'm writing fiction right now, but mostly nonfiction. So it has to be a title. I did, because I was trained in NLP, I look for patterns that work and patterns that don't work. I found a site years ago that was every best-selling book in the United States from 1900 to present, and their book titles. And
I like that.
1911 started a fiction list or a nonfiction list. It was fiction before that. It was novels. So both of them, fiction and nonfiction. In nonfiction, which is what I usually specialize in, most best-selling titles, there's a few exceptions always, 1 to 4 words. And within the title and the subtitle, it had a problem, a promise, a population, and a prescription. Again, I'm good with these lists. Yeah, so the problem is, it's promise. I will show you my method of getting books done. I write books typically in several weeks. These days, I will show you how to get your book done within the year. By next year, you will have your book done if you follow my process. And here's who it's for. It's for nonfiction authors. I do not do fiction or memoir. That's somebody else, and they're better at that. I've only published nonfiction books, so you should only come with me if you want nonfiction books. If you're somebody who has something, information you want to get out to people to move them and change their lives and inform them about something. So that's my population. So problem, promise, population, and prescription. Here's my 5-step, 10 steps, 7 elements of, successful book writing. Here's 10 ways to get yourself to write when you don't have enough time, whatever. There's going to be
how-to headline, kind of. Yeah.
Basic. Yeah, absolutely. It's, the 7 habits of highly effective. That's why they have those things. That's a prescription. So there are other parts to it, but that's the main thing. So for me, I don't start writing a book until I have that book title and subtitle and I have the passion. The next one I do is an outline. If I don't have an outline, it could be an article and I don't know. And I get into the book and I've only got 3 chapters and there's not enough for a whole book. I have to have an outline that tells me, and I'm blessed with an outline mind. Came from a trauma, which is a different story I won't get into right now, but I became really good at organizing lots of information into a very clear linear outline. Not everybody's that. Some people are divergent thinkers, which is a great skill, not so much for writing books or for planning books. Maybe writing books should be good, but planning books, you either have to get a co-writer who's got that kind of outline mind, or a coach or somebody who can help you do it, or get some hypnosis, shift that about yourself. Or
use ChatGPT to gather your thoughts.
There you go. That is a great,
ChatGPT is a great planning tool. So good.
I think
so good
that's one of those things. It's a asset for people who have some personality or neurological things that don't serve them in all areas. So that's book writing. And to me, it's an easy thing to write a book. Now, I've done it a bunch of times. For most people, it's formidable, but writing songs was totally different. I had written probably 40 songs over 40 years. I wrote a bunch when I was a teenager and, into that teenage angst and romance and heartbreak and all that stuff when I was first in university. And then I got busy with life and I only wrote one every couple of years whenever the inspiration hit me. When I finally got enough money and had enough time to retire from actively having to make money with my work, I thought, I always wanted to be a songwriter and I never really got a chance to fulfill that thing. I've got a boatload of time now. I don't have to do anything. I want to see if I can do this songwriting at a professional level. I want to see if I can get my songs good enough to be out there in the world. And I went to, I just Googled songwriting workshops and events and, mentoring. And I found a few things. And I went to Nashville, which is, LA and Nashville and London, big songwriting centers. And Nashville is the world center of to me, most high qualifications in songwriting. Those songwriters are amazing. And I get there and they say, we treat it like a job. We don't wait for inspiration to strike. We get together with 2 other people in an office at 10 in the morning. And when we write a song, it's 3 hours. We take a lunch break. We come back in the afternoon with 2 other people and we write another song. And I go, well, where do you get the inspiration, And how do you do that every day?
Right.
A lot of professional songwriters will write hundreds of songs a year.
Yeah.
Because they know if you write hundreds of songs, it's like going to the gym and, you just get better at it. Yeah. Like anything, if you work at it and you get some feedback, and all that stuff, you get better at it. And also you have to probably write 1,000 songs to find that one gem.
Every now and again you hit a home run. Right. Yeah.
So I was like, oh man. So someone told me you have to write 100 songs to find your first good one. I'm like, geez, I've only written 40 over 40 years. I'm going to be dead before I write the 100.
Right.
But I discovered co-writing, which is the power of collaboration. We do this at Get Shit Done. We have our Get Shit Done work parties where we get together and we do the hard work that we normally procrastinate on doing as a group. It's so weird. And, in songwriting, again, you can go into a meeting with 2 other people to write a song.
Yeah.
And you don't have any inspiration, no ideas. And someone will say, man, I barely rolled out of bed this morning. And you go, I barely rolled out of bed this morning.
Yeah, that happened for me with years with emails. I used to think in subject lines, and I had a notebook all the time, and I was always writing down subject lines that I'd hear coming out of people's mouth, and it was usually 1 to 4 words.
Great. Well, I have, that's what songwriters do, and that's what maybe all writers do, or all creative people do. They're listening out in the world, sometimes their own brains just coming up with stuff because it just happens spontaneously, but they're listening out in the world, in movies. In Nashville, I don't know if you remember that movie, Jerry Maguire, and he said, "You had me at hello," was the tagline, or was the big line. In Nashville, they told the story. I wasn't there in those days, but they said that movie was playing in the movie theater, and she said, "You had me at hello." Half the audience got up and went out into the lobby and wrote it down because they were going to write that song the next day.
Oh, interesting.
Because, there's so many songwriters in Nashville. So I went to Nashville. I learned to co-write. I learned a couple of things. One, the power of collaboration. Second, the power of making an appointment. We're going to write a song this morning. You better be ready. And I do what you do with
making an appointment with somebody other than just yourself. Like where you have to show up, you have to show up on time, you have to be ready to go. Yep.
Well, and it's the same thing when I wrote books. I made an appointment with my publisher to deliver the book in October 1st. So there was an accountability to somebody else or a connection with somebody else who was expecting something.
Right.
The third thing is just what you said. I've spent time preparing. I told you when we were going to do this, I don't have anything else scheduled today. Now I do. Somebody canceled for a songwriting session. They said, "Can you jump in? Right. You're the fastest songwriter we know."
Right.
And we really need a fast songwriter because this person's on a movie set. They're a musical artist, but they're on a movie set. They got a movie role, and they only have an hour to write the song. You're the only one we know that can write a song in an hour.
Right.
And so you get a reputation for what you're good at. I'm great with titles and ideas and lyrics. I also write melodies, and I also play instruments. But I learned after doing 300 co-writes what I usually was stellar at, what I was world class at.
Bill, I have never written a song, and I've thought about it a few times. I've written lots of things. I've written a lot of emails, but I've never written a song, and I've never studied how to write a song. I'm an extremely amateur banjo player and a very, very good didgeridoo player. I've been playing didgeridoo since I was 19. So you can't really sing while you're playing didge, but
no.
I'm learning how to play banjo, and I mean, you have all these books and all these, I'm sure, lots of content that's out there. Where should I go to learn how to write a song following your process?
I have 2 books that I wrote with hit writers. I desperately tried to stop writing books after I wrote 36 books. I thought, I really want to focus on songwriting. You really got to focus to be good at something.
Right.
But I get there and I get in conversation with hit songwriters, and they go, "I've always wanted to write a book." And I go, "I know how to write a book. I'll tell you how to do that." And they go, "Well, I've got this idea. Would you write this book with me?" And it was an idea I wanted to learn. So I was like, okay. So the 2 books that I learned the most from writing with hit writers, a guy named Marty Dotson, I wrote a book called Song Building. And it's, how to basically blueprint your song. And it'll tell you exactly how to blueprint a song. It's like how to outline, how to blueprint a song so you know what you're going to write and you write the best you can write. So Song Building with Marty Dotson. And then I wrote another one with a melody genius called Clay Mills, who's had a bunch of hits with Darius Rucker and Diamond Rio and a bunch of other country and pop acts. And it's called Mastering Melody Writing. So those are the 2. If I were going to read 2 books, partly the reason I wrote them is because I'm a big reader. When I first came on songwriting, I want to read some songwriting books. Most of them sucked. They weren't that good. So again, it's that, I'm pissed off about this. Somebody should write one. That's right. And there were no books about co-writing, so I wrote a book about co-writing. So if you ever get serious about it, you should co-write. Co-writing makes songwriting, elevates songwriting to the next level. You learn in every session from somebody who would do something that's different from you. That's the collaborative stuff. And again, you get that motivation, and then you have 2 or 3 people working the song, maybe getting it recorded by somebody, or into a TV show or a movie or something like that. So co-writing is a really great thing to do with songwriting. Co-writing with books, I've done it, probably 10 times. With mixed results. Sometimes it's great, but with co-writers, I find the magical ones. With my magical co-writers, we almost never take more than an hour to write what was the best song I've ever written, kind of thing. 100 times better than the songs I wrote when I was doing it on my own and when I was just practicing. So yeah, I think collaboration, and you're doing that, having other people's energy in there and using their expertise in places that you're a little weak or you're not as strong as you could be.
When you're co-writing songs, do you generally run it where everyone's writing their own song, or that everyone's writing a song collaboratively together on a Google Doc or something?
Google Doc is what we typically use. And again, there's different ways of doing it. I told you I typically write a song a day. Now, how I do that is I don't want to be so scheduled that I have songwriting sessions every day, although I have been. When I was really learning it, I thought, well, screw it, I'm going to go into this full time. It's a 3-hour session. It's just 3 hours out of my day. It's not a full-time job, getting ready for it, and doing demos afterwards and, pitching the song. That maybe turns it into a full-time job, but actually writing the song. But I came across a guy who said, I love your lyrics. You wrote that song in like half an hour when you were out for a walk. I said, yeah, I just wrote the lyrics because you sent me a track ahead of our session. And I finished the whole thing. And he said, I can roll out of bed every morning and I just, without thinking, I'll write a song and I'll send it to you every morning. And we did that for a while. And I said, okay, I want to take the weekends off. Only send me 5 songs a week. Every morning I go out for a 45-minute to an hour walk and I write a song. So I know I've got a song for that day. I've finished my song. And then 3 days a week, I have co-writing sessions on Zoom, or if I'm in Nashville in person, I go to Nashville every couple months. And so there are different ways to write it, but usually it's collaborative. You're in the room, you're going back and forth, you're ping-ponging off each other, you're inspiring each other. Sometimes I'll send a lyric to somebody, they'll write it, they'll write music to it. Sometimes they'll send a track with a melody. Sometimes they'll just send a musical bed and I'll write the melody. So it happens different ways, but that guy who's in Norway, actually, he just released our first collaboration a couple weeks ago. It's called The Brave to Go. His name is Frode Lindganger.
Very Norwegian, I like it.
There you go. And he sends me a track Monday through Friday, and I write a song every day.
What's it called?
It's called The Brave to Go, and his name is Frode Lindganger. And we had a vocalist on it named Rob Alley. It's in the list. I gave you a link. So if people get that link, it'll be in there. It's the last one, I think, that was added because it just came out. But I've had 200 some songs. So I had a hierarchy of, our rungs of success in songwriting. First, I want to write. Yeah, go ahead.
When you write a song, does that mean you play the song too? Or only write it?
Sometimes I can't play it. The people that I write with are such better instrumentalists,
right? Or
they write on instruments that I can't play.
Okay, so you're not always writing it for yourself to play.
No, that's right. I learned probably. I write 300 to 400 songs a year. I probably learned 10 of them.
Yeah.
First of all, not everyone is a hit. Second of all, not everyone's in my range.
Are you? So if most of your songs are written collaboratively and you write that many songs, does that mean you're getting paid to write most of these songs?
No, there are ways to get paid to write songs. You have a publishing contract and they give you a draw or an advance. You have to be pretty high level. And also they take 50% of your money. And when I have a book writing agent, they only take 15% of my money. So the songwriting thing is 50%. I'm like, holy moly, that's a lot. So I'm independently published, and I have a publisher for some of my songs that are in movies and stuff. They'll sign the songs and then they'll represent them and they'll take 50%. Yeah. But I'm an independent person, but there is a way to get paid for it. But the only way songwriters get paid is their songs get in movies or TV, or they get recorded by artists and they're played on the radio or on Spotify or whatever. Spotify is terrible. The streaming services pay songwriters terribly. They pay artists pretty well, the people who sing the song and play it and perform it. Those people get paid by the streaming services pretty well. Radio pays pretty well. Movies and TV and commercials pay pretty well. Songwriters don't get paid by the streaming services. They get paid a pittance. Really successful songwriters who get 6 million streams can earn like $6,000 a year. So it's not much of a business. You have to get a hit song that's on the radio, right, and that's performed at a stadium. You earn money when they perform your song, things like that. So it's hard to earn money as a songwriter. I have earned money as a songwriter, but I've earned it by writing songwriting books, teaching songwriting workshops,
right,
as to supplement my songwriting income that comes from TV and movies. Sometimes the TV and movies are quite lucrative. It's thousands or tens or twenties of thousands of dollars. So.
Does that mean most of your songwriting activity is just for pure passion then?
Pure passion, but I also have that hierarchy. First, I wanted to write a song that blew me away, that I thought this is the greatest song, one of the greatest songs I've ever heard, not just written. Secondly, I want to write a song that one of my co-writers wants to record and release. That, that it has to be good enough that they want to do that.
Yeah.
Third, I want to have a song that somebody I've never met and I don't know wants to record. That's called an outside cut. Those are hard to get because a lot of performers write their own music. They write their own.
Right.
It's doable, and Nashville is the place to do it because they're used to getting outside songs because they want the best song to keep on top of the charts. Right. And then I want a song in a major movie. I want a song in a major television show. I've already gotten some of that. I want a song in a major commercial. I want to earn a full-time living. I don't need to because I have enough money. But what would be a full-time living in the standard in which I've become accustomed to living? I want to do that because that tells you how you're doing. It's an indicator how you're doing and whether you're a professional, that kind of stuff. So, and then I want to get a top 10 song, then I want to get a number 1 song. So
cool.
Those are
I love it.
I'm about, they always say in Nashville, it's a 10-year, Nashville is a 10-year town. I'm 8 years into a 10-year town. I've gone pretty far. 218 recordings of my songs are out there, not done by me, but by other people. I've recorded a few of my songs, but I'm not really an artist. And so, I'll probably have 300 by the end of this next year. And that's pretty good. All indie artists. But I want to get a major artist and I want to get a big, a hit and a cut.
Cool. I love it. Well, so there's a link in the description where people can click over to your playlist and listen to a bunch of your music, which I haven't actually done yet. So I'm looking forward to doing that today.
Yeah.
Bill, this has been a great interview. It's been great getting to know you. I like you a lot. You're a cool dude. Do you have any other words of wisdom for budding entrepreneurs, budding creators looking to really get shit done in their creative passion? Anything to sum this up?
Yeah, I listen to podcasts all the time, and I watch inspirational things and informational things all the time. And I heard somebody say yesterday, when I was done writing my song, I listened to a podcast if I have extra time. And I was listening to a songwriting thing, and it said, everybody overestimates what they can do in a month or a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. I mean, you have to have patience. It took me a while to become a book writer. I sucked at it at first. And that's the other thing. You have to suck at it. You have to be a beginner's mind and suck at it. When I first went to Nashville and I played the songs, people said, those are good songs. They're not great songs. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be a beginner here. I'm just going to open myself. No, I don't know. Learn what I can. The other thing is, we've talked about this, find somebody that's a mentor who's gone where you want to go.
That's right.
Pay them money, hang out with them, follow them, listen to all their, podcasts, their, videos. They have wisdom that you can use. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. They've already been down that road. They can save you a bunch of time and a bunch of frustration. So find a mentor, a teacher, a role model, somebody who has information, and then seek them out. And at a certain time, pay them a boatload of money to help you do that thing and shave years or decades off your, or
pay them to train you.
Yeah,
pay them to train you. Yep.
Succeed at it when you wouldn't have succeeded. You would have
Right.
gotten too frustrated and given up.
That's right.
pay that money when it's time to pay. I scraped together the money to be in Jeff Walker's mastermind group. It was a boatload of money for me at the time, and it was worth every penny. I made back a premium, my return on investment, in my lifestyle, but also in terms of actual money. I mean, find the right person and then follow them, or the right people and follow them and pay them money and get them to help you shorten your learning curve. I mean, that is something. And then, as I said before, when you know what you want to do, ignore your feelings, glue your bum to the thing, do your podcast every day, your video every day, even if you don't feel like it,
work.
And until you get it done, suck at it until you get better, and then get better and get better, and put it out in the world and get feedback, because that's the only way you're going to know whether it's working or not. If it succeeds, it doesn't.
That's so important, Bill. I found so many people, in particular, I've noticed this in particular, people over 40, definitely over 50, will come to me and say, Tellman, I want to get my self-confidence back. I want to have my confidence back. Just give me my confidence back. And I'm like, you can't get it back. You can rebuild it. You can develop it. Yeah. And you have to rebuild it and develop it by doing stuff that you suck at, by being confused. And because you get confidence by learning and doing things that you don't know how to do well, so that you learn how to handle those difficulties when they come up in the future. That's called confidence, So yeah, so important.
Digital native. I learned how to do online courses. I learned to do all the tech stuff at first, then I farmed it out when I made enough money because I wanted to understand it. And I also wanted my brain to grow. I taught brain, happiness and the science of happiness and brain, keeping your brain alive as you grow. I'm in my 70s. And so I wanted to keep my brain alive by learning new shit.
Exactly. So it's so important. People fall off that, and it's such a trap. Bill, I'm assuming you have a recommendation, but I might be wrong. I'm curious, is there a book or a resource that you know of that would be the best for someone, me in particular, to really get better at Ericksonian hypnosis?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I mean, Erickson himself was a terrible writer. He was off. I read his books. I'd read his books and I think, wow, he's so good. He's putting me in trance. No, they were just terribly written. They were boring and hard to read after I learned it really well. So, I mean, I think, the first book that really did it for me, that I read right after I met Erickson, I met him in an art gallery at Arizona State where I was a work study student, was Uncommon Therapy. That book it both inspired me and depressed me. I thought, I'll never be this good. And it was totally inspiring. I want to be this good. And so that was a good one. I think my book, Taproots, is the clearest description of Erickson's work ever. It's just clear, because Erickson was confusing. That was one of his specialties. Like you say, you have to go through confusion to get to wisdom. And that he would deframe your current reality so he could offer a new frame. And he specialized in confusion, which was hard. It was a hard way to learn in a certain way, but like Zen masters, they get you out of your usual thing. So I think those are good. The other thing is, there's only two people I ever met that after Erickson left that were enough like Erickson that when they'd work, I think, wow, this feels like Erickson's fingerprint. It really feels like Erickson. And one was John Weekland, who's no longer with us, as a brief therapist from Palo Alto. The other one is Stephen Gilligan. Stephen Gilligan does still trance camps, and he does training all over the world.
I've heard Stephen's name over the years, but I don't think he and I ever connected.
He's an amazing fellow, and he's closest to the spirit of Erickson, the generative spirit that was no formulas and just deep connection with people and deep creativity about how to change. So Gilligan, go to Gilligan's Trance Camp, look up Stephen Gilligan, go see his stuff. Again, his books are good, but his live presence, that's very akin to my experience of being with Erickson, which was mind-boggling and weird and warped me for the rest of my life.
Awesome.
in a good
Awesome.
way.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you for our great recommendations and wonderful show here today. This was great.
So nice to connect with you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You
See you
got it.
again.
Yeah, guys. So if you haven't already, click on the link to Bill's playlist so you can listen to some of his music in the description. And if you're not already a member of our productivity cult, I highly recommend that you go over to getshitdone.com and you join our productivity cult for entrepreneurs. We train entrepreneurs to get shit done. And when you join, one of the things that you'll get is the Get Shit Done session, which is a recorded hypnosis session that I've been selling for years that you're going to get for free. We just opened the getshitdone.com membership for free. We were charging for it, but we decided to open it up. So if you want to try out the Get Shit Done session, increase your productivity, overcome procrastination, and get shit done like you never have in your life before, that's where you go. Awesome, Bill. Thank you so much. Really good meeting you. If there's anything I can ever do to help you out, please reach out and let me know. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tellman.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Enjoy your day. Thanks, everybody. Toodaloo. Bum, bum.